I'm a 34-year-old male working as a pilot for a well-known aviation company. I've been married to Eva, who is 30 years old, for the past 3 years. Our paths crossed about 5 years ago at a party where she was a senior executive in the same company, handling more of a corporate role in the back office. We had a few encounters at office parties before we started dating. Eva was an incredibly attractive, confident, and intelligent woman. As a pilot, I'm constantly surrounded by good-looking people. But what drew me to her was her intelligence. She had a way of keeping me grounded both figuratively and literally. Maintaining a relationship with a pilot isn't simple due to our irregular work schedules, jet lag and constant exhaustion. However, Eva relationships were with either cabin crew members or ground staff, and they never lasted long. Eva brought a new sense of vitality to my life. That's how our connection grew, and we dated for 2 years before getting married. But things have taken a different turn in these past 2 years. While I don't anticipate married life to be as thrilling as the dating phase, it should still be a source of happiness. Otherwise, what's the point of being married? Over the last several months, I've observed a shift in Eva's behavior. It's possible that this change was underway for a while, but I've only recently started noticing it. Eva is becoming the opposite of the person she used to be. Going against all the qualities that initially attracted me to her. You see, my job is demanding both physically and mentally, and it does impact my emotional well-being. However, Eva used to understand this. She recognized that I couldn't always be available to her 247. There were instances where she might have needed me urgently. But I couldn't be reached for many hours due to my work commitments. This is just a part of my profession. My previous relationship didn't last due to a lack of time and feelings of insecurity. Most of my breakups were a result of one or both of these issues. In most cases, I couldn't devote the expected amount of time to my partners, or they felt unsure about my interactions with attractive coworkers during my long and solitary flight. The reason my relationship with Eva succeeded was her lack of insecurity about me. However, like I mentioned, she's changed. This transformation began about 4 months ago when I had to cover a colleague's shift on the day before Eva's birthday. I had taken 2 days off to spend quality time with her at a resort her birthday. Unfortunately, on the evening before her birthday, my colleague had to leave unexpectedly due to a family emergency. I think his daughter was ill, but I'm not entirely certain. This compelled me to fill in for him. I expressed my apologies to Eva and explained that it was only for one night. I assured her that I would return the next morning on her actual birthday, and we could celebrate throughout the day. She was visibly upset. I tried to make her understand that this was beyond my control, and I had no other option. I asked her if she preferred to stay at the resort alone for the night or if she wanted to go home and we could return the next day. She opted to stay at the resort by herself. I left during the evening. It was a flight within the country, so I came back by the morning. Once I landed, I called Eva right away and told her I'd be at the resort in an hour. I tried my best to explain why I wasn't there at night, but she wasn't happy. She stayed quiet and grumpy for most of the time. She acted like celebrating her birthday was a favor to me. I thought she had a right to be angry because of my sudden work commitment, but she stayed irritated after that. A week later, I asked her if she was still mad at me. She replied that she wasn't. She had gotten used to me not being around. It was clearly sarcasm. Even a child could understand it. I wanted to have a sincere talk with her, but she dismissed it, saying it wouldn't help, and she would always have to make compromises. I'm not sure, but I thought she was trying to make herself look like the victim. Since then, I noticed she had 2 main moods. One was just normal, where she wasn't happy, angry, sarcastic, or anything, just plain. The other was cranky when she complained about everything related to me. We've had several arguments over the past months where we discussed our problems. I'm not perfect. She mentioned many times when I acted badly, but I admitted to it and promised to improve. However, when I tried to talk about my concerns, she got defensive and turned the situation around on me. She claimed I caused her to act in a foolish way, that I was the reason for her behaving badly. Really? More often than not, I was left feeling surprised and confused after those conversations. I talked to a fellow pilot about whether he was dealing with a similar problem, as a big part of how we act is influenced by our job. I shared my situation with him while we were on the same flight. He listened closely and then laughed, saying, "Wow. Is every woman like that?" I asked him to explain. And he told me his wife also complained about him not being there for her physically and emotionally. He also said that every woman tends to blame her husband in the same way. I don't want to upset anyone, but I honestly don't think all women are self-centered. After chatting with my coworker, I tried to ignore the issue, hoping that my wife's mood swings were just a temporary thing and would go away, but they didn't. Now a new problem has come up. Suddenly, she's become insecure about me. She raises an eyebrow whenever I get a new haircut or buy a special cologne. She always asks, "Who are you trying to impress?" At first, I thought she was joking, but she actually seemed bothered by my grooming. I mean, she knows I'm a pilot, so I need to look presentable. I can't just wear pajamas around. I'm not a writer. Whenever I tell stories about work that involve my colleagues, she quickly focuses on the names of the female ones. She asks if I find them attractive. This is starting to irritate me. I've reassured her that I would never cheat on her and that I only want her. I've given her all the reasons why no one else could take her place. Like I explained at the beginning of the story. That's why I mentioned that Ava is becoming different from the person I originally fell in love with. I don't know where my marriage is headed. If anyone has gone through something similar, please share some advice. Update 1. Back in September, I shared that my wife, Eva, seems to be turning into a different person compared to before. She used to be understanding and confident, but now she's becoming more critical and unsure of herself. This worried me because a similar issue led to the end of my previous relationship. Many of you suggested that maybe I was the problem, considering that if the common factor in most of my breakups was me, then it was likely my fault. So I took this seriously and tried to address things from my side. I made an effort to be attentive and emotionally present when I'm at home. I took care of her in every way to make her happy and comfortable. She even recognized that I wasn't giving her any reason to complain. Our anniversary is coming up tomorrow, and I've been planning for it for months. I want to make up for the difficulties we had during her birthday. I arranged to take a week off from work and informed my boss that I won't be available any work emergencies during this week because I'll be out of the country. However, I haven't told Eva about this. I've organized a surprise for her. Actually, I didn't mention our upcoming anniversary at all. I pretended that I had forgotten about it. The idea was that I'd go to work in the evening like usual on our anniversary day, which is today. According to my schedule, I was assigned to the night shift this month, so it makes the plan easier to carry out. I left in the evening with a plan to return around midnight to surprise her and then take her on a week-long vacation. Since she works in the back office, it wouldn't be a problem for her to take an urgent week-long leave. She's taken such leaves before, so I trusted that she'd be able to manage it. Over the past month, I've been shopping for her, getting the outfits she'd need for the vacation. I also got her a single stud diamond necklace as a gift. I'm really excited, but I've kept everything a secret. On the other hand, Eva has been acting snappy and strange as the anniversary got closer. While she thought I had forgotten about it, I kept imagining how happy and surprised she'd be when I reveal my plan. This evening, I got dressed up and left the house at my usual time. Eva was home as I was leaving, and she seemed really upset, but didn't say anything. I asked her if she was all right, and she just nodded without smiling. Inside, I was laughing and wondering how she'd react if I had actually forgotten. I went to a mall to pick up some extra travel toiletries. Right now, I'm wandering around the mall to pass some time so I can get back around midnight. I bought some bouquets, cupcakes, candles, and anything cute I found in the store. It's only 9 p.m., so there are still a few hours to go. I'm using this time to update this post. I'll let you all know how she reacts. Wish me luck. Update. Back in September, I mentioned that my wife's behavior was changing toward me. Someone suggested it might be because of me, given that my past girlfriends had similar complaints. So I worked on myself and planned an exciting surprise vacation for my wife on our anniversary. I talked about this in November, just a day before our anniversary. I provided a link if anyone wants to read the whole story. As I planned, I left the mall around 10:30 p.m. When I got home, I used my key to quietly enter the house and surprise Eva. I could tell she was talking to someone in the living room as I came in. I assumed she might be on the phone complaining about me forgetting her birthday. When I went into the room to surprise her with cakes and bouquets, I found her completely undressed. Yes, she shocked me beyond words. I was completely stunned, and she seemed just as surprised. For a moment, I thought she had somehow found out about my plan and set up a surprise of her own. I was almost going to laugh and admit she got me when a man walked out of the bathroom also undressed. It all happened incredibly fast, and none of us had a chance to say anything. I dropped everything I was holding, confronted the man, and demanded to know who he was. She tried to free him and ran to his side. I gritted my teeth and gave her a look filled with anger. Honestly, I wanted to confront her more intensely, but the man was right in front of me. So I grabbed him. I'm relieved that I didn't confront her harshly, because that would have led to a very different situation. I don't think she would have been able to handle that. I was furious and couldn't control myself. The guy managed to free himself and gave Eva a look as if she should have made sure everything was prepared before telling him. I wanted to hit him because of that look. But Eva held onto my hand. The man grabbed his clothes and left the house while getting dressed along the way. Meanwhile, I yelled loudly asking Eva about him. She pleaded with me, saying she would explain and asking me to let the guy leave. I hurried after the guy, trying to make him stop and answer my question about who he was. He turned around and shouted at me. "I came here because your wife paid my agency. I'm not here for intimacy. Okay?" I turned back to Eva and questioned whether what he said was true. She held my hand crying and admitted that she had hired an escort service because she felt isolated. She thought I had forgotten our anniversary. And in a moment of anger, she wanted to hurt me like I had ruined her birthday. She told me I hadn't been giving her enough time and attention, which she needed from me. I had been prioritizing my work and emotionally distant. I asked her when all of this started. She explained that although she had considered it during angry moments and lonely times, this was the first time she had gathered the courage to actually hire someone. She said she was shattered and overwhelmed by my behavior on that day, so she wanted to clear her head. She argued that technically, she hadn't cheated on me because I arrived before they could do anything. I don't know if they had already done anything, but judging by the state of the bedroom, it seemed like they hadn't done anything yet. It's been a week since that day, but I'm still struggling to accept the fact that my wife was on the verge of being unfaithful. She assured me she wouldn't do it again. Unfortunately, the anniversary was ruined regardless. I was so down that I didn't even cancel the reservations. I received a call from the airline in the morning because I had done the online check-in, but didn't show up. I canceled the hotel bookings then. I stayed locked in the bedroom almost all day, drinking until I passed out. I'm not sure what she did that day, and I didn't bother to check. However, I know she was at home because she occasionally knocked on the door, pleading and begging. I felt like I'd suffocate if I stayed in that room any longer. So in the evening, I contacted my boss and told him that my vacation somehow got cancelled, and I wanted to cancel my time off. He adjusted my schedule and I returned to work the following day. I wanted to clear my mind before making any decisions. I know she didn't actually cheat, but she came close to it. But what if I truly forgot? Does that justify her potentially cheating? I'm not sure. She's been begging me for one last chance and promising to do everything to repair our marriage. Honestly, I still love her, and I don't want to lose her. However, I'm too hurt to forgive and move forward. I haven't talked about this with my coworkers or friends because they know Eva, and I don't want to tarnish her reputation. I would appreciate a fresh perspective on this situation. Update. Hey there. I'm giving this update with the intention of helping others who might be facing a similar situation. I've included a link to my original post below. That incident really shook me so much that I felt the need to seek therapy. Eva wanted to go with me, so we decided to try couples therapy. I hardly talked to her after that night, and I thought maybe couples therapy would be more effective. Unfortunately, our first therapy session was scheduled 2 weeks after we signed up, which only added to my frustration. My boss and coworkers quickly noticed that I wasn't my usual self and suggested I take some time off. Since pilots have the responsibility of the passengers' lives on a plane, they can't rely on someone with a troubled and confused mind for such critical work. Taking a break seemed reasonable to me. I went to my family's old home in the countryside where my distant uncle lived alone after my grandparents passed away. It was the perfect place for me to clear my thoughts. When I was leaving with my packed bags, Eva held my hand and asked where I was going. I just ignored her and didn't say anything. I returned home on the day of our therapy appointment. Those 15 days surrounded by nature and the first therapy session did offer some help. The therapist suggested that we live separately for the time being because Eva's presence only angered me and prevented any progress. Eva started complaining that she had nowhere to go except her parents' house, which she didn't want to do because she didn't want her parents to realize our marriage was in trouble. She insisted that I should be the one to move out somewhere. Since I wanted to get away from her and her negative presence, I rented a shared living space. In the next meeting, I came in with a clearer head, but Eva was really upset. She told me that being by herself was breaking her mentally, and asked me to come back. I wasn't ready, so I said no. She vowed to fix things and make our relationship better, but I held back. Our counselor stepped in asking Eva about her feelings. Eva shared that she feels lost when alone. She always wanted someone around, which is why she never stayed alone. The counselor then asked if I'd think about moving in with her. I stood firm, saying I needed more personal space. At that point, Eva got really mad and said she felt I was always stubborn and only thought about myself. In her anger, she confessed that once on her birthday when I had to rush to work, she felt unimportant to me. That's why she ended up with a guy staying in a nearby room. From that day, she decided to focus on her own happiness just like I did. She started having numerous one-night stands, both paid and not. When the therapist asked if she felt bad about it, she said at first she did, but then she'd remember how I did things my way, and she felt she deserved the same. When the therapist asked if this made her happy, she said it didn't necessarily, but it did make her feel less alone. She also thought that since I worked with many attractive women, I might be cheating too. That, I believe, is when her insecurities began. I was initially furious with her revelation, but I calmed down as the therapist talked to her. I sat there quietly feeling a bit sorry for her deep down. I wasn't sure if she was genuinely depressed, or just using that as an excuse for her actions. After she spoke, I told her that I wanted to split up. I couldn't be with someone who cheated. No matter the reason, Just because some jobs are more time-consuming than a regular 9 to 5 doesn't mean the other person should cheat. If that were true, every wife of a soldier, sailor, or naval officer would do the same. When Eva heard my decision, she was devastated and pleaded for another chance, swearing she'd do anything to save our marriage, but I couldn't get past it. It might sound harsh, but I can't be with someone who betrayed me, especially when she tried to say I might have done the same. After the session, I contacted her parents because she was beyond upset. And not accepting my decision. I told her I wouldn't tell everyone the real reason we were splitting. That's the most I could do for her. Her parents came quickly. I told them we were breaking up because my job hours didn't mesh well with our relationship. They were stunned since they thought we were happy together, but seeing Eva so upset, they figured she might not agree. When her dad asked her if she was okay with my explanation, she surprisingly said, no. She expressed wanting to stay together and fix things. I was in shock. Her parents looked surprised at me, and mentioned that it was a decision they both agreed on when she wanted to stay married. I informed them that she had an issue with my work hours, and it was evident we couldn't find a solution until I retired. They found it very simple to propose that I switch careers or take a different job. Seriously? I might have thought about it if we had discussed this before she cheated, but now I can't abandon my profession just because she cheated. Right? I had no option except to be honest with them. Her father got nervous and accused me of making up the story to get rid of his daughter. I emphasized that Eva needed to speak out, or I'd have to bring in legal measures and involve the therapist. Eventually, she spoke up and, like usual, she pointed the blame at me, saying it was because of my selfishness and emotional distance that she felt forced to do it. Her father asked her mother to pack Eva's things, but didn't say anything to me afterward. Eva begged her dad to persuade me, but he didn't show any change. The following day, I initiated divorce proceedings and the process is still ongoing. I'm writing this with the sole aim of raising awareness among people the challenges of demanding professions. I got married to my first wife, Olivia, when I was 24 years old. We were both young when we fell in love. Back then, I believed she was the perfect woman for me. However, I was quite mistaken. There was a time when I thought we were deeply in love, but she didn't hesitate to leave me for a wealthy businessman. That's when I truly understood her intentions. I can't precisely recall the first instance I noticed Olivia. We grew up in the same small town and went to the same high school, but during those days, we weren't part of the same friend circle. She was one of the most attractive girls in our school, and I was just a geeky kid. I never imagined I'd have a chance with her. Jump ahead a few years. After completing university, I returned to our small hometown. I was getting ready to start a job at the veterinary clinic and had just moved into a new condominium. Of course, transitioning from a fast-paced city back to a quiet small town was a significant change. Nevertheless, I was eager to reconnect with old friends and be close to my family again. A few nights after moving into my condo, I headed to a downtown bar to catch up with old friends. I offered to treat everyone to drinks and walked up to the bar. As I approached, I noticed something strikingly familiar about the bartender. It took me a moment to realize who it was. Then it hit me. The gorgeous girl I used to see in the high school hallway every day had transformed into a woman. "What can I get you, honey?" she asked me. I can't deny what happened next. My heart raced, and I felt a surge of nervousness. In that instant, I felt like an awkward teenager all over again. I just stood there, my face showing total confusion. It might have lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a clumsy, what? I felt like the biggest fool on the planet. What was going on with me for the past 4 years? I had been living in the city, confidently socializing with women, yet here I was, a bundle of nerves, but there was something about Olivia that always made me feel anxious. "You went to Westbrook High, right?" Olivia asked while pouring the drinks in that moment. I was utterly stunned. All these years, I believed she never noticed me. As the evening progressed, I kept offering to treat the group to rounds of drinks. I used any excuse to go up and strike up a conversation with the bartender. Since I was reuniting with friends after a long time, none of us wanted the night to end. And aside from my friends, there was another reason I was in no hurry to leave the bar that night. Olivia. I'm not sure if it was the alcohol or if Olivia turned out to be more approachable than I initially thought. But as the night went on, I felt increasingly at ease chatting with her. Before the bar closed, she asked for my phone and saved her number in it. Over the following year, things went really smoothly. The veterinary clinic where I worked extended its hours, and I was earning good money. I got approved for a mortgage and was getting ready to move into my first house. After that night at the bar, Olivia and I started dating. On our first date, I knew she was the person I wanted to spend my life with. I proposed to her just 5 months into the relationship and she accepted. We got married within a year. My friends and family thought I was moving too quickly in the relationship, but I didn't let their opinions bother me. During the initial years of our marriage, everything felt like a fairy tale. I earned enough at the clinic to support both of us. We weren't wealthy, but it was sufficient to cover our expenses and get by. After our marriage, Olivia decided to leave her job at the bar. She explained that she wanted a break from work to focus on her art. This surprised me initially since she hadn't shown any interest in painting or drawing before. Nevertheless, I wanted to support her as her husband. Olivia's artistic endeavors didn't pan out as expected. However, her former boss reached out to her for part-time bartending during busy seasons and important events. She was skilled at it and enjoyed the work, but she didn't want to make it a full-time commitment. Things were going well for a couple of years until one day, Olivia's previous boss contacted her again. This time, it was for a significant corporate event happening in town. Business leaders and CEOs from across the state were coming to our small town for a month-long summit, focused on business expansion and investment opportunities. Olivia's boss needed an experienced employee for this event, and Olivia was asked to join temporarily. She agreed readily due to the attractive pay. Initially, I didn't think much about it. However, a few weeks into the gig, I began to have a feeling that something was off. Olivia was working late into the night, often staying out longer than usual. Since bartenders often wrap up their shifts post-midnight, I didn't initially find it unusual. During the initial days, she would return home around 3 a.m. After a week, one morning, my alarm went off at 7 a.m. and I noticed Olivia wasn't in bed beside me. I checked my phone and found a text from her. She explained that it was the final night of the corporate event, and the attendees were staying late due to the significant investments they were making. She had no idea when she would be done. I accepted it as a one-time occurrence considering the importance of the event. However, as time went on, her schedule began to raise suspicions. I usually left for work at 8 a.m., and often she wasn't home by then. By the time I returned home, she had already left, meaning days could go by without seeing her. I asked her when she'd be back, and she mentioned 9 a.m. Yet when I reviewed my house's CCTV footage, it showed she usually arrived around noon, not looking fatigued. Plus, bars don't usually operate during the day, especially retaining night shift employees. I had always been a trusting husband, but something felt off. In fourth week, I decided to adjust my schedule and leave for work at 9 a.m. But she still wasn't home. To clear the air and address my concerns, I decided to visit the hotel where she was staying. This was a high-end 5-star hotel hosting the business summit. Olivia's company was handling the bar and bartending services for the event. Along the way, I picked up a berry smoothie and a fresh croissant, knowing they were her favorites. My intention was to drop these off for her at the bar. Upon my arrival, I found the bar closed with locked doors, dim lights, and eerie silence. I approached the hotel reception to inquire about the bar's operating hours. The receptionist gave me a strange look considering it was 10 a.m. in the morning. She informed me that the bar closes sharply at 1 a.m. I then questioned if the bar might be open all night due to the ongoing business summit. She seemed confused by my question and promptly dismissed it. Finding my inquiry unsettling before this incident, a nagging feeling had been hinting that Olivia might not be truthful. I was reluctant to accept it. I messaged Olivia to ask her whereabouts and she claimed to be at the bar. I sent her a photo of me standing in front of the closed bar, urging her to come out so we could discuss matters. She mentioned she'd be home in an hour due to work commitments. I had to head to the office, but my mind was preoccupied. I instructed Olivia not to leave home until we had a proper conversation. After wrapping up work, I hurried back home. As I arrived, I noticed Olivia's car in the driveway. Somehow, I sensed that things were about to change dramatically as I entered our house. However, the surprise that awaited me caught me off guard. Stepping through our front door, I immediately felt a shift in the atmosphere of our home. I wasn't usually one to notice small details. That was Olivia's forte, yet something felt amiss. Olivia sat at the kitchen table, her demeanor rigid and uneasy. Her expression held the weight of undisclosed news. And then my gaze shifted to the 3 packed suitcases behind her. At first, she remained silent, which made me extremely uneasy. I couldn't tell if she was struggling to find the right words or if she expected me to initiate the conversation. Each passing moment felt excruciatingly long, as I questioned her about the packed suitcases. Her tearful reaction began when I asked her about them. She tried to explain that she had an opportunity she couldn't ignore and was leaving to pursue her dream. Her voice quivered and she avoided making eye contact with me. This behavior only confirmed to me that her words were far from truthful. As she continued to lie, my anger started to rise. I'm usually quite calm, but the betrayal from the person I trusted the most ignited a rage within me. Overwhelmed by frustration, I slammed my hand on the table and demanded that she be honest. Throughout our 2-year marriage, this was the first time I had ever raised my voice to Olivia. Dealing with lies can bring out the worst in anyone. Finally, she confessed the truth. I almost wish I hadn't asked to hear it, because the pain of that revelation still haunts me today. My wife was leaving me for one of the businessmen she had met at the bar. Some wealthy individual who lived in a different part of the state. It's been 5 years since then. Of course, that period was challenging for me, but the specific details of that time aren't relevant now. I sold the house we used to live in and moved to a better neighborhood. I'm now happily married to a wonderful and driven woman named Kara. We're also expecting a baby. Life is going well, so why dwell on the past? For the past few years, Olivia has been a distant memory. However, a few days ago, I received a text from her saying she's back in town and wants to meet up. I initially ignored her messages, but she kept messaging me persistently, claiming it was something urgent. Here's the dilemma. I don't want her to re-enter my life yet. I'm also curious about this urgent matter she wants to discuss. What should I do? Update. Recently, Kara and I welcomed our baby boy into the world. And we're getting used to being new parents. Following some of your suggestions, I thought that Olivia might want to meet up to apologize. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt and agreed to meet her for coffee. When I got to the coffee shop, I saw her sitting in a booth waiting. She smiled when she saw me. And for a moment, I considered that some of you might have been right. Maybe she just wanted to make amends. At first, she acted casual, engaging in small talk as if we were catching up after not talking for years. But I noticed she was up to her old tricks. While discussing her return to town, she seemed to find excuses to get closer to me or touch my hand. I tried to distance myself and brushed off her advances. It was clear she believed she could win me over. I moved away. and firmly told her to respect boundaries. I could see her face turn red as she realized I wouldn't give in. She claimed she missed me, although I knew it was false. She had swiftly abandoned our marriage when a wealthy man showed her attention. In the past 5 years, she hadn't tried to contact me even once. That's when I called her out on her act and asked for the real reason behind her urgent meeting request. Tears welled up in her eyes, and this time, I didn't feel sympathy witnessing her pain. This was just a fraction of the emotional suffering she inflicted on me by leaving. She acknowledged betraying me and my hatred for her, but she said she had no one else to turn to. Strangely, as much as I hated her, I still felt some concern for her as a fellow human being. A part of me was curious about her motives and why they involved me. I inquired about what she needed from me. She requested a loan of $5,000. You see, her millionaire boyfriend never committed to her with a ring. When he moved on to his attractive new assistant, he kicked Olivia aside. Now she's left with nothing. It looks like karma finally caught up with her. I don't know why I was taken aback by the revelation of her request. During our time together, love blinded me. But after she left, I realized my role in her life. You see, she never really noticed me when we were young. However, that night at the bar, she overheard me and my friends talking. She learned about my promising job and my new condo. Maybe, after a few drinks, I even mentioned my income. She saw dollar signs and a guy not even enough to fall for her charm. Of course, I only recognized all this after she was already gone. I didn't have any intention of lending her money, but my curiosity got the best of me. I asked her to explain why she needed the money. She proceeded to share all the current details of her life. After her relationship ended, she returned hoping to stay with her parents temporarily. However, she hadn't kept in touch with them, so she was unaware that they had sold their house and moved into a small one-bedroom apartment by the beach. Olivia explained that she needed the money to get her life back on track, including renting an apartment. She also wanted funds to cover expenses while working on a painting that she hoped to sell to a trendy city gallery. Naturally, I questioned her about whether the gallery had shown interest in her work. She had mentioned an interest in art during our marriage, yet she hadn't produced a single painting or anything artistic during those 2 years. To be honest, I had no idea whether she could even paint. I had never seen any of her artwork. Olivia confessed that she hadn't contacted anyone from the gallery. She planned to create a piece to present to them. This was quite characteristic of Olivia, believing she could simply walk into a place and instantly impress people just by being herself. I promptly declined her request. I didn't say it harshly. I kept my unkind thoughts to myself. Instead, I told her the honest truth: I had just become a parent and was dealing with a mortgage. I couldn't afford to spare that amount of money at the moment. She tried to negotiate for $3,000, but I stood my ground and didn't give in. She started explaining her concerns about not having a place to stay. The bar where she used to work was now under new management, and didn't require her help no matter what she was attempting to sell. I wasn't buying it if she wanted to figure things out for herself. She should do it using her own resources. I reminded her that I had supported her during our marriage, but she chose to pursue a relationship with a millionaire. I'll always remember the sudden change in her expression. She went from appearing as a helpless person to transforming into a cold-hearted antagonist. It was at this point that she told me, "You owe me, actually. I didn't ask for anything during the divorce. I should have received alimony or at least half of the money from selling the house. But I let you off the hook easily. That can change, though." That was the final straw for me. I might have used a few strong words in response. Who wouldn't? But that marked the last time I would give her any benefit of the doubt. When I got home, I blocked her on all my social media platforms. The thing is, I'm concerned about what she might do next. Is it possible for her to come after me for money after all these years? Should I consult a lawyer? I'm not sure, folks. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Update. Life has been incredibly busy for us lately. But I understand that you're following my posts for a reason other than that. You're probably curious about what happened after my conversation with Olivia. Well, I'm glad to report that nothing significant occurred. She had a lot of words, but no action to back them up. To be cautious, I did talk to a lawyer in a way. My colleague's brother works at a law firm, and he informed me that in this state, an ex-partner can't seek alimony once the original divorce case is settled. Even if she did seek legal advice, didn't have a valid case to pursue. Besides, she lacks the financial resources to engage in a legal battle. I'll give her credit for attempting, but she won't deceive me again. I blocked her number and all social media platforms as well. Of course, living in a small town makes it difficult to completely avoid hearing about someone. Despite your efforts to distance yourself, someone else will eventually bring up their activities. I learned that she moved upstate to stay with an old friend from high school. Fortunately, she won't be around to complicate my life any further. If she wants to play games, she'll have to find another opponent. As for me, we're getting ready for a summer vacation. Kara and I both took a few weeks off in August. We've placed a deposit on an RV and plan to travel around the state visiting various campsites. Taking a road trip with a baby might sound crazy, but we're thrilled about the adventure. Update. Incredible. I'm amazed at how many people have been following along with this story. It seems like a lot of you have had your own experiences dealing with someone like Olivia. I was pretty much done with sharing updates after my last post, but something interesting happened that I thought you all might want to hear about. Remember when I mentioned our plan for a road trip in the RV? Well, we've been traveling around the state for the past 3 weeks exploring different places. I was pleasantly surprised by how well our baby handled the journey on our way back home. We stopped at a diner near the highway. It didn't look very fancy from the outside, but it was convenient. Both Kara and I were too hungry to be too choosy about where we ate. While we were seated and had placed our orders, I excused myself to use the restroom. As I was washing my hands, I heard some commotion outside the restroom doors. It seemed like a manager was reprimanding one of the employees. I overheard the manager mentioning that it was the third complaint they had received about this employee just within that week. Apparently, the employee had given a 4-year-old hot sauce instead of ketchup. Then I recognized a voice that sounded very familiar. I couldn't quite place how I knew it. It turned out to be Olivia, apologizing to the manager and promising to improve her behavior as a last chance. Normally, I would have stayed in the restroom until the conversation ended. It's not fair to add more embarrassment to an employee already getting scolded by their boss. But this was something I was curious to witness while drying my hands. I could hear her manager criticizing her for being irresponsible and lazy. He gave her a stern warning about leaving her section unattended and untidy, emphasizing it was her final chance. Just as I was exiting the restroom and stepping into the hallway of restaurant, her manager impression on her face at that moment is something I'll always remember. I'm sure I was the last person she wanted to see when her manager delivered those words. I didn't say anything to her. However, her manager seemed a bit embarrassed that a customer overheard his conversation. He came to our table, apologized, and offered Kara and me a free dessert. Honestly, I didn't expect much from that little diner. But getting free pie and witnessing my ex-wife facing consequences for her actions made it worthwhile. I'll definitely leave that place a positive review later on. I guess this will be the final update regarding Olivia. My focus is now on my family and career. It seems she's facing the consequences she deserved.